They called me a cost burden. 6 months later, I became the reason they lost their biggest contract. I spent 12 years building systems that kept Silvergate running. 12 years of 60-hour weeks, missed dinners, and believing that loyalty meant something. Then Derek Vaughan walked into that conference room with his restructuring plans and corporate buzzwords. And in 15 minutes, everything I'd built became worthless. Not aligned with our new vision, he said, sliding the severance papers across the table like he was doing me a favor. I should have seen it coming. The whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by, the way my access to certain files mysteriously disappeared, the sudden interest in fresh perspectives from someone who'd never written a line of code or managed a single client relationship. But I didn't see it coming. And that was my first mistake. My second mistake, thinking it was over. My name is Madeline Cooper. And until that Thursday in March, I thought I understood how corporate America worked. 38 years old, 12 years at Silvergate Systems, and foolish enough to believe that competence and loyalty actually mattered. I'd built my career on the simple premise that good work speaks for itself. While my colleagues played politics and networked their way through company happy hours, I stayed late debugging code and ensuring our clients got exactly what they paid for. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work that kept Chicago's logistics industry running smoothly. Silvergate Systems wasn't just my employer, it was my professional identity. I knew every line of code in our core platform, every quirk in our deployment process, every client's specific requirements. When new hires needed training, they came to me. When critical systems failed at 2 a.m., I was the one they called. I'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, and countless weekend plans because Silvergate needed me. The irony wasn't lost on me that Derek Vaughan, the man who'd just declared me obsolete, had been with the company for exactly 7 months. "You'll want to start transitioning your active projects," Derek said, his fingers drumming against his glass desk. "Amanda will need comprehensive documentation on all client relationships, particularly the Horizon account." Amanda Reeves, 28 years old, Stanford MBA, and about as qualified to manage enterprise software implementation as I was to perform brain surgery. But she had something I didn't: the right connections. Specifically, a connection to Derek's former business partner, who happened to be her father. "The Horizon proposal isn't complete," I said, trying to keep my voice professional. "The technical specifications alone require." "I'm confident Amanda can handle the technical aspects." Derek's dismissive wave made my stomach clench. "She's been reviewing your work for weeks. Very impressive background in systems integration." Systems integration. The kind of buzzword-heavy nonsense that looked good on LinkedIn profiles, but meant nothing when you were actually building software that had to function in the real world. I thought about the Morrison Industries project, the $4.2 million contract I'd delivered 3 months ahead of schedule. The client had been so satisfied they'd recommended us to 6 other companies. But Derek saw it as old thinking, a single client solution that didn't align with his vision of scalable, multi-tenant platforms. Never mind that it actually worked. Never mind that it generated more profit than any project in company history. Derek wanted innovation, not results. "I assume you'll be honoring the standard non-compete agreement," Derek continued, sliding the severance package across his desk. 18 months should give you plenty of time to explore opportunities in adjacent industries." Adjacent industries? Another polite way of saying I was being blacklisted from the only work I'd ever known. I stared at the manila folder containing my professional death sentence. 6 months' salary, health benefits through the end of the year, and a legal guarantee that I couldn't work for any of Silvergate's competitors until Derek's new regime had time to consolidate power. "This is a mistake," I said quietly. Derek's smile was sharp and cold. "I don't think so. Sometimes organizations need to shed legacy weight to move forward. It's nothing personal." But it was personal. The moment Derek decided I was expendable, it became the most personal thing in the world. As I walked out of his office for the last time, I made myself a promise. Derek Vaughan was going to learn that legacy weight could be incredibly dangerous when it started moving in the wrong direction. The first week of unemployment felt like morning. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. out of habit, reach for my phone to check overnight system alerts, then remember I no longer had access to anything. My laptop sat on the kitchen table like an expensive paperweight. All my development tools and project files locked behind corporate firewalls I'd helped design. But grief has a way of transforming into curiosity. And curiosity led me to start asking questions. I reached out to Sarah Martinez, my former team lead who'd been restructured out 3 weeks before me. Over coffee at a Lincoln Park cafe. She filled in the blanks I'd been too blind to see. It wasn't random, Sarah said, stirring her latte with mechanical precision. Derek's been planning this since day one. He needed to clear out the old guard before bringing in his people. His people? Amanda's just the beginning. He's got 2 more Stanford connections starting next month, both in senior positions, both completely inexperienced with logistics software. Sarah's laugh was bitter. They're paying Amanda more than you were making. By the way, $90,000 base, plus equity. The number hit me like a physical blow. I'd been making $72,000 after 12 years of service. There's more, Sarah continued. Remember how Derek kept talking about legacy code and technical debt? Turns out he's been shopping the Morrison project to other companies as his own work. Called it a proof of concept for next-generation logistics automation. My blood pressure spiked. That's impossible. My name is all over that code. The client documentation has been mysteriously updated. Amanda's signature is on all the recent deliverables. I spent the next few days conducting my own investigation. A few carefully placed calls to former colleagues revealed the scope of Derek's operation. He wasn't just replacing personnel. He was systematically erasing any evidence that the previous team had contributed to Silvergate's success. The Morrison project had been rebranded as Project Velocity, with Derek listed as the primary architect. My technical documentation had been scrubbed of references to my involvement. Even the client testimonials had been edited to credit Derek's visionary leadership. But Derek's most devastating move was still to come. I discovered it through Marcus Webb, a developer I'd mentored who'd managed to avoid the initial purge. He called me on a Thursday evening, his voice tight with anger. "You need to know what's happening with Horizon," he said. "Derek's been telling everyone that you sabotaged the proposal before leaving. He's claiming you deleted critical files and corrupted the database schemas. That's insane. I never had access to..." It gets worse. He's filed a formal complaint with the industry consortium. Your name is on a blacklist that's been circulated to every major logistics company in the Midwest. The blacklist? I'd heard rumors about it, but never believed it actually existed. A shadow network of executives who shared information about problem employees to prevent them from finding work with competitors. Derek had effectively branded me as a saboteur, ensuring that even if I wanted to start over somewhere else, no one would hire me. As I sat in my apartment that night, staring at rejection emails from companies I'd never even applied to, I realized the full scope of Derek's strategy. This wasn't just about eliminating competition, it was about destroying me so thoroughly that I could never pose a threat again. But Derek had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I would accept defeat gracefully, that I'd quietly disappear into whatever adjacent industry would have me. He was wrong. Corporate America might run on politics and connections, but it also ran on contracts and competition. And I'd just remembered something important. Silvergate's biggest competitor, Venture Core Logistics, had been trying to recruit me for years. Time to find out if that offer was still on the table. Venture Core Logistics occupied a sleek glass tower in downtown Chicago. 30 floors of aggressive ambition that made Silvergate's suburban office park look quaint by comparison. I'd been here twice before for industry conferences, back when competing companies still maintained the pretense of professional courtesy. Now I was here for revenge, though I preferred to think of it as career redirection. "Madeline Cooper," said Jennifer Walsh, Venture Core's Chief Technology Officer, as she led me through corridors lined with awards and client testimonials. "I have to admit, I was surprised when you reached out. Last I heard, you were Silvergate's golden girl. Things change." I kept my voice neutral, professional. I'm interested in exploring new opportunities. Jennifer's smile was knowing. I'm sure you are. Derek Vaughn's been quite vocal about his organizational improvements at industry events. Word travels fast in our little world. We settled into her corner office, which offered a commanding view of the Chicago River. Jennifer was everything Derek pretended to be, genuinely innovative, technically competent, and respected by her peers. She'd built VentureCore's development team from scratch, turning them into Silvergate's most serious competitor. I'll be direct, Jennifer said, leaning back in her chair. We've been watching your work for years. The Morrison project was brilliant, exactly the kind of comprehensive solution our clients are demanding. Derek's an idiot for letting you go. He had his reasons. I'm sure he did. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I'd rehearsed this moment a dozen times. But sitting across from Jennifer, I realized I didn't need to pretend anymore. I want to build something better. Something that shows the industry what real logistics automation looks like. Jennifer's eyes lit up. As it happens, we're pursuing a contract that might interest you. Horizon Global Freight. $25 million over 3 years. My pulse quickened. I'm familiar with the opportunity. I thought you might be. Your former colleagues have been quite confident about their chances, especially after bringing in their new systems integration specialist. Jennifer's air quotes were perfectly timed. But between you and me, their proposal's garbage. All flash, no substance. They're promising technology that doesn't exist yet. What are you offering? A chance to show them how it's really done. We want you to lead the project. Full autonomy, unlimited resources, and a team of developers who actually understand logistics software. The timeline is aggressive. But if anyone can deliver, it's you. I thought about Derek's smug confidence, his assumption that I'd simply fade away. What's the catch? No catch, just one requirement. We win this contract. Not just win, dominate. Make it clear that VentureCore is the only serious player in enterprise logistics automation. Jennifer pulled out a contract folder, the kind of thick legal document that represented serious commitment. Director of Strategic Development. Base salary of $120,000 plus equity plus performance bonuses tied to major contract wins. Full benefits, unlimited PTO, and a signing bonus of $50,000. The numbers were staggering, more than I'd made in 12 years at Silvergate. There's something else, Jennifer continued. This stays between us until the Horizon presentation. Derek can't know you're involved until it's too late for him to adapt. I understood. This wasn't just about winning a contract. It was about psychological warfare. Derek would walk into that presentation expecting to face VentureCore's usual team, only to discover that his legacy weight had found a new home. When do we start? How about right now? Jennifer's smile was sharp. Your new team is waiting in conference room A. They're eager to meet the architect behind the Morrison project. As I signed the contract, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Control. Derek had tried to erase me, but he'd only succeeded in setting me free. Now I had resources, talent, and most importantly, motivation. VentureCore didn't just want to beat Silvergate, they wanted to humiliate them. And I was exactly the person to make that happen. Derek was about to learn that some legacy systems were built to last. The VentureCore development team was everything Silvergate's had never been: hungry, collaborative, and refreshingly free of corporate politics. Within 2 weeks, I had 12 brilliant engineers working around the clock to build something that would make Derek's next-generation platform look like a high school programming project. But winning the Horizon contract wasn't enough. I wanted Derek to understand exactly what he'd thrown away. My first move was reconnaissance. I reached out to Tom Bradley, a former Silvergate client who'd always been frustrated with Derek's management style. Over lunch at a River North steakhouse, Tom confirmed what I'd suspected. Derek's been trying to sell everyone on this revolutionary new approach, Tom said, cutting into his ribeye. But when you dig into the technical specs, it's all smoke and mirrors. Half the features he's promising don't exist yet. What about the Morrison system? Are they still using it? That's the crazy part. Derek's been telling people it was always temporary, just a proof of concept. He's planning to replace it with something more scalable within 6 months. Tom shook his head. Meanwhile, we're processing more shipments than ever. The system you built is bulletproof. I filed that information away. Derek wasn't just stealing credit for my work, he was planning to destroy it entirely. My second move was more delicate. I needed intelligence on Silvergate's Horizon proposal without crossing any legal lines. Fortunately, corporate America runs on professional networks, and I'd spent 12 years building mine. Rebecca Torres, a procurement specialist who'd worked on 3 of my previous projects, met me for coffee in Lincoln Park. She'd recently joined a consulting firm that helped companies evaluate logistics software proposals. "I can't give you details," Rebecca said, glancing around nervously. "But I will say this. If I were evaluating software vendors, I'd be very concerned about security vulnerabilities in legacy systems that haven't been properly maintained." She slid a business card across the table. "My firm specializes in independent security audits. We're always looking for experienced consultants who understand enterprise logistics platforms." The implication was clear. Rebecca's firm could conduct a routine security assessment of any system I'd previously worked on, and if they happened to discover critical vulnerabilities that posed risks to potential clients, well, that was just due diligence. I spent the next month systematically dismantling Derek's strategy, working 18-hour days. I built a demo system that didn't just match Silvergate's capabilities, it exceeded them by orders of magnitude. Real-time analytics, predictive maintenance, automated compliance reporting, and security features that would make government contractors jealous. More importantly, I documented every single flaw in the Morrison system that Derek was planning to showcase. Memory leaks that would crash the system under heavy load. Database queries that would slow to a crawl with large datasets. Security holes that could expose client data to anyone with basic hacking skills. These weren't malicious backdoors, they were simply the kinds of technical shortcuts that accumulate in any complex system over time. Issues I'd planned to address in the next version, before Derek decided I was expendable. By the time VentureCore's proposal was complete, I had something Derek could never match. A fully functional system backed by irrefutable evidence that Silvergate's alternative was fundamentally broken. Jennifer reviewed the final presentation with barely contained excitement. "This is devastating," she said, scrolling through slides that methodically dismantled every aspect of Derek's proposal. "You're not just beating them, you're ending their credibility in the industry." "That's the point," I replied. Derek wanted to play hardball. Now he gets to learn why that's a dangerous game. The Horizon presentation was scheduled for the following Thursday. Derek would walk into that room expecting a routine competitive pitch, only to discover that his former legacy weight had become his worst nightmare. I couldn't wait to see his face. The Horizon Global Freight headquarters occupied an entire city block in downtown Chicago, its lobby filled with the kind of understated luxury that screamed serious money. I arrived 30 minutes early, watching through floor-to-ceiling windows as Derek's team unloaded their presentation materials from a black SUV. Derek looked confident, almost cocky, as he strode through the lobby in his perfectly tailored suit. Amanda Reeves followed close behind, clutching a tablet and nodding earnestly at whatever wisdom he was dispensing. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Ready for this?" Jennifer asked, adjusting her blazer as we rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. "I've been ready for months." The Horizon conference room was a study in corporate intimidation, mahogany table, leather chairs, and a wall of windows overlooking the Chicago River. 8 executives sat around the table, led by Patricia Hendricks, Horizon's chief operations officer. I'd worked with Patricia on a smaller project 3 years ago, back when she was still a regional manager. Derek's team presented first. For 45 minutes, I watched him deliver a masterclass in corporate theater. Buzzwords flew like confetti: synergistic integration, scalable architecture, revolutionary paradigm shifts. The slides were beautiful, full of swooshing animations and colorful charts that promised miraculous improvements in efficiency and cost savings. Amanda handled the technical portions, reading from prepared notes about next-generation cloud infrastructure and AI-powered predictive analytics. She sounded competent enough, as long as no one asked follow-up questions. The Morrison Industries deployment serves as our proof of concept, Derek said, clicking to a slide featuring impressive performance metrics. We delivered a 300% improvement in processing speed and eliminated 95% of system errors. I bit my tongue. Those were my numbers. From my system. With my code. Questions? Derek asked, his smile radiating confidence. Patricia leaned forward. The technical specifications look impressive, but I'm concerned about implementation timelines. How quickly can you deploy a full-scale system? 6 months, Derek replied without hesitation. Our streamlined development process eliminates the lengthy testing phases that slow down traditional implementations. I nearly laughed. 6 months to build what had taken me 18 months to perfect. Derek was either delusional or lying. Thank you, Patricia said. We'll now hear from VentureCore Logistics. Jennifer stood first, but then stepped aside as I moved to the front of the room. I'd like to introduce our project lead, Madeline Cooper. The reaction was immediate. Derek's face went white. Amanda's tablet slipped from her hands, clattering onto the mahogany table. Even Patricia looked surprised. Hello, Derek, I said, my voice steady and professional. Patricia, thank you for having us. I didn't waste time on pleasantries. Instead, I launched directly into a live demonstration of our system, not slides or mock-ups, but actual working software processing real shipping data in real time. This system is handling 50,000 simultaneous transactions, I explained, manipulating data streams on the massive wall display. Notice the response times, the error rates, the resource utilization. For the next 20 minutes, I systematically demolished every claim Derek had made. Where his team promised features, I showed working implementations. Where they offered theoretical improvements, I provided measurable results. But the real devastation came when I shifted to system security. Any logistics platform must prioritize data integrity, I said, pulling up a detailed vulnerability assessment. Unfortunately, legacy systems often contain security flaws that pose significant risks to enterprise clients. The slides that followed were surgical in their precision. Memory buffer overflows that could crash systems during peak usage. Database injection vulnerabilities that could expose sensitive client data. Authentication bypasses that would give hackers administrative access. Every flaw was documented, tested, and verified. Every vulnerability was tied directly to the Morrison system Derek had just finished praising. These aren't theoretical concerns, I continued. These are active security risks in production systems currently being marketed to enterprise clients. Derek tried to interrupt, but Patricia silenced him with a raised hand. Her expression had shifted from polite interest to barely controlled fury. Are you saying, Patricia asked slowly, that the system Silvergate is proposing contains known security vulnerabilities? I'm saying that any organization considering logistics software should conduct thorough security audits before deployment, I replied. The consequences of a data breach in this industry can be catastrophic. The room fell silent. Derek sat frozen, his confident smile replaced by something approaching panic. That's when I knew I'd won. Patricia Hendricks didn't even wait for Derek's rebuttal. She closed her leather portfolio with a sharp snap and stood up, her movement cutting through the conference room's stunned silence like a blade. I think we've heard enough, she said, her voice carrying the kind of executive authority that ended careers. Derek, I'm going to need you to explain how your team planned to deploy software with documented security vulnerabilities to handle our global shipping operations. Derek's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Amanda fumbled with her tablet, desperately scrolling through slides that suddenly seemed woefully inadequate. The other Horizon executives exchanged glances that spoke volumes about Derek's rapidly diminishing credibility. Patricia, I can assure you that any minor technical issues can be resolved during the implementation phase. Derek finally managed, his voice strained. These are common challenges in enterprise software development. Minor technical issues? Patricia's tone could have frozen Lake Michigan. Ms. Cooper just demonstrated that your system could expose our entire client database to external threats. We process shipping data for Fortune 500 companies. A security breach wouldn't just damage our reputation, it could trigger federal investigations and regulatory sanctions. I watched Derek's face cycle through emotions, confusion, anger, and finally, recognition. He knew exactly who had identified those vulnerabilities, and his eyes met mine across the conference room with something approaching hatred. "This is clearly a coordinated attack," Derek said, his composure cracking. "Ms. Cooper has obvious conflicts of interest that should disqualify her from..." "From what?" Patricia interrupted. "From identifying legitimate security concerns in software you're trying to sell us? From demonstrating superior technical competence?" She gestured toward the wall display, where my system was still processing transactions flawlessly. "Everything she's shown us is verifiable. Can you say the same about your promises?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Derek's team sat frozen, their carefully rehearsed presentation reduced to irrelevance in the span of 20 minutes. "Furthermore," Patricia continued, "I'm concerned about your characterization of the Morrison Industries project. According to our research, Ms. Cooper was the primary architect of that system. Are you claiming credit for her work?" Derek's face flushed red. "The Morrison project was a team effort under my strategic direction." "Stop!" Patricia's voice cut through his explanation like a scalpel. "I've heard enough corporate doublespeak for one day." She turned to address the room, but her eyes focused on me. "Venture Corps, your proposal is accepted. We'll begin contract negotiations immediately." The words hit Derek like a physical blow. $25 million vanished in an instant. His flagship client, stolen by the woman he'd dismissed as legacy weight. "Patricia, please," Derek said, desperation creeping into his voice. "If you'll just give us an opportunity to address these concerns." "The opportunity was this presentation," Patricia replied coldly. "You had 45 minutes to convince us that Silvergate was the right choice. Instead, you tried to sell us compromised software while taking credit for someone else's work. That's not the kind of partner Horizon needs." As Patricia and her team filed out of the conference room, Derek remained seated, staring at the table as if it might offer some explanation for what had just happened. Amanda was quietly gathering their materials, her face pale with the realization that her meteoric rise at Silvergate had just crashed into reality. "Derek," I said quietly, moving to stand beside his chair. "You were right about one thing. Sometimes organizations do need to shed legacy weight." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with something between rage and defeat. "The difference is," I continued, "legacy weight knows where all the bodies are buried. You should have remembered that before you started digging graves." Jennifer appeared at my elbow, barely suppressing a grin. "We should go. Patricia wants to discuss implementation timelines." As we walked toward the elevator, I could hear Derek's voice behind us, sharp and desperate as he tried to salvage something from the wreckage. But it was too late. The damage was done, and everyone in that room knew it. The elevator doors closed, and I finally allowed myself to smile. Phase 1 of Derek's education was complete. The news of Silvergate's collapse spread through Chicago's tech community like wildfire. Within 48 hours of the Horizon presentation, 3 major clients had terminated their contracts, citing security concerns and leadership instability. The company's stock price plummeted 40% in a single trading session. Derek's board meeting lasted exactly 17 minutes. I learned the details from Marcus Webb, who called me 2 days later with barely contained excitement. They didn't even let him finish his explanation, Marcus said. The board chair just stood up and said, "Your incompetence has cost us our most valuable client and destroyed our reputation. Clear out your office." Amanda Reeves lasted another week before accepting a lateral move to a subsidiary company in Minneapolis, corporate speak for exile. The rest of Derek's handpicked team scattered to various startups and consulting firms, their brief moment of power reduced to awkward LinkedIn updates. But the real satisfaction came 3 months later. When I stood outside Silvergate's former headquarters, watching a crew remove the company logo from the building's facade, the entire operation had been acquired by a German conglomerate for parts, its intellectual property sold off to the highest bidders. Jennifer joined me on the sidewalk, 2 cups of coffee steaming in the October air. "Any regrets?" she asked. I watched the last piece of the S fall into a dumpster below. "None. Derek's working at a startup in Austin now, some kind of food delivery app. Good for him." I meant it. Derek had taught me something valuable about the nature of power in corporate America. It wasn't about competence or loyalty, it was about understanding the game and playing it better than your opponents. "The Horizon implementation is ahead of schedule," Jennifer continued. "Patricia's team is thrilled. They're already talking about expanding the contract to include international operations. That's what happens when you build things that actually work." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the demolition crew methodically erase 12 years of my professional life. But I felt no sadness, only a strange sense of completion. Derek had tried to destroy me, but he'd actually set me free. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Madeline, the board wants to discuss a long-term partnership. Are you available for dinner next week?" I smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. VentureCore had won the Horizon contract. But I was building something bigger, a reputation as someone who delivered results while others made promises. Derek had called me legacy weight, as if that was something to be ashamed of. But legacy wasn't about the past. It was about building things that lasted, creating value that endured beyond corporate politics and personality conflicts. As I walked back to my car, I realized Derek had been right about one thing. Sometimes organizations do need to shed weight. They just need to be careful about what they're actually discarding. Some weight, once removed, has a way of landing exactly where it can do the most damage. Thank you for listening to this story of workplace revenge and corporate justice. I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening to this story? Are you at work, commuting, or relaxing at home? Please leave a comment below to share your thoughts, and let's connect with fellow listeners from around the world. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about workplace politics and professional revenge. Your engagement helps us create more stories that resonate with your experiences.